Welcome back, and joining me for a look at the equity scene is Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore. Viv, thanks so much for your time today. So, a busy week for markets. Trump making a return to the White House, and we also had the Fed dishing out its second rate cut. Let's start there, right? The Fed dishing out a second rate cut, making sure that we know that the rate cutting cycle really is gaining traction. But what was interesting there, we talked about it off air, was that, Powell had to answer questions about whether he will still be the chair in the next year or so.
Yeah, it was quite a short clip here, and I think it's one of those things that's going to be famous for years to come. If you remember back in, when you had this, the Secretary of Treasury during the financial crisis basically got on his knees to beg lawmakers not to do, or to help him save the economy. I think this is going to be one of those kind of videos that is set for ages. Basically asked him, what will you do if Trump asks you to resign? He says, would you resign? He says, no. You think he has the legal authority to ask you to resign? He says, no. That is very, aggressive from the Fed to the chair. I think, Trump has made some really aggressive statements regarding the Fed chair and how he thinks that he's been partisan, trying to help Biden, talking about the fact that he thinks that the rate cuts that came before the election, or rather Harris, was basically in order to help the Democrats win. And so I don't doubt that when the first time he has the chance to, he will replace him.
So it'll be a very interesting 4 years to come with Trump in the White House, Viv. Let's move over across the Atlantic there. The Bank of England cut rates again as expected. It's lowered its inflation forecast for this year, but has raised inflation expectations for 2025 and 2026. It's also raised its growth outlook, taking into account the recent UK budget. Some are saying this was a hawkish cut and that we might see a pause in December. What's your take there?
Yes, I mean, the UK budget was very aggressive. I think the term that was used was basically, for the Chancellor of the Exchequer, was basically the broadest shoulders will bear the greatest burden. So basically, we're going to tax the rich a bit more. They're doing things like taxing private school spending, private jets, and that kind of stuff. But also like a lot of stuff that's hitting the upper middle class as well. And I think that is something to be concerned about, because that economy, and much of Europe actually, is in a bit of an austerity kind of squeeze at the moment, because their budget deficits are just blown out crazily. And so the BOE basically, as it is cutting rates here, also has to be aware of the fact that Trump has come out with these tariff increases that he's talking about, and people focus on the fact that he's talking about putting tariffs on China, but he's putting tariffs on China that's higher than the rest of the world, but he's also want to put tariffs on the rest of the world as well.
Yeah.
And I saw a study recently that said that if the general tariffs he's putting out there, if they were to come in full effect on the UK, for instance, the effect on the UK economy in terms of exports could be as large, if not larger, than Brexit. So it's a significant risk to that economy. So I do think it's a very tough time for the BOE at the moment, because they're going to be facing, firstly, a very punitive kind of budget, and the hope is that business is still going to basically create while taxes are so high. But at the same time, we're going to face the external threat of these global trade wars.
You mentioned China there, and I want to bring it back to company news, where we've had Richemont pointing a finger at China, saying that it's recorded downbeat watch sales on the back of slowing demand on that front. What have you made of those numbers?
Yeah, look, I mean, Richemont's down about 20+% in the last couple of months here, and I think that is, partially due to what's been happening in China.
Yeah.
The Chinese are an extraordinary source of demand for luxury goods. Their gifting culture, the kind of cachet they give to European, luxury goods, is something that's, one of the things that's actually been driving profitability for these companies for a long time. The fact of the matter is that the Chinese economy is under huge amounts of pressure, political pressure as well as economic pressure as well. The politics of gift giving and that kind of stuff is likely to be difficult. I mean, we've already seen moves in the past to prevent gifts to officials and so on. That was a huge source of demand for luxury watches and so on. And in terms of the economy, I mean, we mentioned one place that Trump's going to place the highest tariffs on. That's going to be China. That economy has already experienced issues, and that's why we're seeing all these stimulus packages been coming into play over the last few months. Some of them, in absolute terms, larger than what we saw back in 2008. And if we see their projections going forward, it's even harder for that economy to recover if Trump's in the White House looking at engaging in a trade war.
Viv, before I let you go, let's just get your stock pick. What are you hanging your hat on today?
This is also a link to the Trump toolless trade. There's a company called Palantir. The big shareholder there is a guy called Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is actually a significant, backer of J.D. Vance, the vice president. J.D. Vance basically, the whole hillbilly elegy, he wrote that book and so on. But the reason he became so, rich and famous in Silicon Valley and then even became a senator was because of the backing of Peter Thiel. And we talked about the fact that it's 4 more years of Trump. But quite frankly, looking at Trump's age, Trump's weight, and so on, I would not say that there's a 0% chance he does not make it to the end of 4 years, and then there's a significant chance that J.D. Vance is the president at least before the Trump term runs out. And in that case, you're going to have somebody with a huge link to Peter Thiel, in the White House, and I think that will be good for a company like Palantir, which has a lot of government business. So we've already seen the company run up already. It's had some good results this week. It's up 33% this week alone. But I still think that if you look over for the next few years, you're going to be finding even more, profitability, more positivity come to the company, just because of the benefits it's likely to gain from that Trump victory.
Interesting take there, Viv. Palantir, one to look out for. Thanks so much for your time and just taking us through the day's markets action. That was Viv Govender from Rand Swiss Offshore.